We are back with episode 15 of the What's C On About podcast. Coming up for you today, we're going to have a little look back at the England versus India ODI series. I'm filming this before the final ODI, but I think we can make some assumptions there. We're going to look ahead to England's Champions Trophy chances and some of the selection issues popping up. We're going to have a look back at the Australia versus Sri Lanka second test and that series as a whole. Then a little look forward to Australia's selection thoughts and processes going into the World Test Championship. Then we're going to have a lovely look at the biggest margin of victory in tests by an innings in the history of Test cricket. We'll dive deep into that scorecard. It's an Ashes test, so either way, either an Englishman or an Australian will be unhappy. So that's all to come as you ask yourself, what is he on about? The final ODI kicks off tomorrow between England and India, and I'm going to make a quick assumption for you all. I think England are going to get rolled. Rohit's in the runs. Cheers, Rohit, for turning up against us and not against Australia. That's really nice to have. It's going to be 3-0 straight up. And I ask one thing of England. One thing. Please play Rian Ahmed. All we need to play is a spinner. England just have been so reluctant to play any spinner other than Adil Rashid this whole series that we've been throwing bouncers, we've been throwing pace at them, everything but spin. Whilst India have been replying with three out and out spinners, Jadeja's been getting 3 for 20 in his 10 overs in the ODIs he's been playing. So I just hope that Brendan McCullum plays something as close to our starting 11 for that Champions Trophy first game as we possibly get. Make sure everyone he wants to play in that tournament can play or has played already. Make sure of that in that final game. All right. I really hope it ends 2-1 to India, but not going to lie, probably going to be a 3-0 loss. Anyway, moving on. Looking back at the series as a whole, I'm a positive man. I'm going to start with the negatives. Two main things for me. The tail has batted too often. It'll be interesting to see in the third ODI, but I assume that Adil Rashid and Mark Wood will have some work to do with the bat in the final 5 overs because that's how England have been playing. 9 downs or all outs galore this whole white ball series. Nothing, no game has ended with England 8 down or better. Unbelievable stuff. And then it's the manners. This is the second main negative. It's the manner of the way England are getting out. Almost, I think every single person was caught either on the ring or in the boundary, definitely in front of square in that second ODI, other than a few run-outs late in the game. But it's just the manner in which it's all out attack, no holding back. Even if it's a good ball, absolutely batter it. That's what it feels like. And I feel in the test game, England managed to rein it in. It was Bazball galore at the start, but now they had to rein it in. They're getting better. But in the white ball side, we need time to get better at that. Now, Jacob Bethel looks to be injured. I think he's going to be out of the Champions Trophy, it seems, and it's going to leave a big hole in the England side. I think he's shown his class as a batter. He's shown he can get those half centuries when England need them. But I think, especially in India, his spin bowling was going to be so crucial in the Champions Trophy in Pakistan as well. That's where Bethel's true value lies this England team. Now, Tom Banton's coming in. We're going to come on to why that is a great pick. However, it's really going to affect the balance of the side. England need to make sure we're always playing 7 batters. The way England play, 7 batters has to be the way forward. Top 7 has to be their main skill is batting. All right. But with Banton coming in without Bethel, all of a sudden you're missing a spinning all-rounder. And with that ethos of 7 batters, it makes it really tricky to fit in enough spinners. But Joe Root Liam Livingston bowled brilliantly in the second ODI. So I think that should be enough. Again, we're going to come on to that in a minute about how the bowling might look. But Adil Rashid, I think he needs Rian Ahmed alongside him. He's going to provide good strength of the bat as well. But again, we'll come on to Rian Ahmed in a little bit. Another negative for me, we've talked about it a lot, I feel like the last 2 or 3 weeks, but for me, I just don't think he's got a place in the ODI side, unfortunately. I really want him to go away, earn his place back, because he's easily a good enough player. It's Jamie Overton. But it just feels to me like his batting's not good enough. And as an out and out bowler, I feel like we've got better paces in that lineup that probably deserve more of a chance. That number eight, number seven role for me, if you're not playing seven batters, I think Cast has to be at that number seven role. But even that feels too high for him, let alone Jamie Overton. I think him at number seven is a no-go, and even him at number eight could be an issue. You see, I wouldn't mind him playing as an out-and-out bowler at nine. It's just the issue is it's now making our tail look so long having Jamie Overton in there, and I'd much rather have a Sam Curran coming in at that point, even though he hasn't lit things up in an England shirt. I do think he'd be a better option with the bat. But the main thing, as I said, we want Rian Ahmed to play, but what he's going to provide is not only an out and out spinning option alongside Adil Rashid. Yes, they both spin it the same way. Yes, they're both right arm leggies. But Rian Ahmed could take up that number seven role and bat really, really well. A lot of people I know who've played against or with Rian Ahmed said that they were a lot more wary of his skills as a batter than they were with him as a bowler, which I think has been really interesting because he's been brought into the England Test side as a spinner. But his skills there as a batter really are so underrated. But especially with Pakistan coming up, Rian Ahmed has to play in the final ODI because I feel like England are going to need him in the Champions Trophy. Unless Brendan McCullum sticks to his guns, as he always does, and plays out and out spinners the whole way to the final. Knowing Brendan McCullum, we're going to bring the Champions Trophy home. But knowing England, we won't. Moving on to the positives, I think although it's been loss with one win in India, what it has been is a brilliant test for the England boys. It's highlighted all the areas we need to cover over before we play against Australia, South Africa, Afghanistan, in Pakistan. But it's also just giving us that reality check. It's giving us that ability to reset. We're playing the best team in the world, arguably, in the hardest conditions to play away from home. They love batting there, they love bowling there, and we hate it. But it's been a great test for the boys. And if you would say we could have any three ODIs anywhere in the world against any team before the Champions Trophy, I think we'd pick away in India. It'd be the greatest test, and I think it's really showed us what we need to work on, what needs to get covered up, and that hopefully England will play a spinner. That's the aim. But it's been a great test for the boys, and I do think that before we go throwing hatred England's way, saying they're the worst ODI team in the world, have a look at who they're playing against and have a look at where they're playing. Again, my heart goes out to Jamie Overton because of how tricky it is to play out there. Right, Tom Banton. This could be massive, everybody. We know Jacob Bethel is out. That's gutting. But let's have a little look at Tom Banton's stats. Yes, he played really well in the county championship last year, which is a bit of a shock to some people. I think he went well in the blast as well. But he's been tearing it up in the UAE. In the IL20, he's got two 50-ball hundreds. He's been the leading run scorer out there, and he scored 493 runs at an average of 55 in T20s. Now that's astonishing. That's the kind of average you have after one or two games, but the bloke's played 11 innings. It's incredible stuff from Tom Banton. We've always known he's got the skill to bat for England. But last couple of years, it just hasn't really worked for him. I'm so pleased he's back. He's clearly quite good in those subcontinental conditions. And I think the conditions out in Dubai are likely to be a lot closer to Pakistan's conditions than they are in India. But that's something to look out for. Hopefully, Banton's going to get a good little run in the England side. But talking of conditions and who love to play in those Pakistani conditions, we've got a couple of members in our side who last year got a partnership of 454 in Pakistan, namely Harry Brook with his 317 and Joe Root with his 262. You can't say the England boys don't like batting in Pakistan. Obviously, it depends on the type of wickets, the Bunsons that arise in Pakistan, what conditions are going to be like out there, especially with a white ball. But that's all to come. We're going to see that. We're going to dive into it next week with a full Champions Trophy preview. Whilst I remembered, make sure to go and check out all the social medias, the TikTok, the Instagram, the YouTube. It's all out there. Wherever you're listening to the podcast, give it a follow. Make sure you're followed on all the social medias and like some of the content. It's pretty good. It's daily. Make sure you check it out. You're missing out, guys. Now, a little look back to Australia versus Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka got utterly rolled. It felt like they just were never really up to it. It felt like they must be gutted, but it felt like they knew they'd lost before the first test match. That's kind of how it felt to me. And there was pressure on the Australian players. It wasn't like these guys are all in unbelievable form. We're going to get rolled. It's like, 2000 and the early 2000s Australia coming to rock up. No, there's pressure on those lads. Pat Cummins isn't playing. The captain's out. A couple more injuries. But, Jai Surya bowls for 2 innings and goes for 344 runs. I mean, to be fair, looking at some of the bowling stats later on, when we find the biggest margin of victory in Test history, that's pretty mediocre stats. But still, 2 innings for 344 runs for Prabhath Jayasuriya. I mean, this bloke was seriously hyped up, but it just felt like the Sri Lankans were out of ideas. In the first Test, Sri Lanka bowled 4 bowlers over 2 days of bowling. Only bowled 4 bowlers. Poor Prabhath Jayasuriya was bowling heaps of overs, luckily up about 2 steps. But the Sri Lankan batters, they weren't making too many runs. Chandimal got some, Matthews got some, Kusal Mendes got some great ones at the end, but it just didn't quite work for Sri Lanka. Their home form was so good. All the English fans were thinking, maybe Sri Lanka could take it from Australia, but it didn't happen. And it's a series to forget for Sri Lanka. Now, Australia, a lot of great performances in there, namely Steve Smith, 200s in the 2 innings he played. God, he's back, isn't he? He is back. He is so back. And this guy, he's quality. Nothing much more needs to be said about him. Look at the bowlers, Nathan Lyon, Kuhneman, Mitchell, Stark, all bowling absolutely terrific stuff. I mean, you're thinking Stark and Lyon are coming to the end of their careers. Absolutely not. Stark's been unbelievable out in the subcontinent. It looks like he's going to take a wicket with every spell he comes on. Nathan Lyon just methodically working batters away, grinding them down. That's what Nathan Lyon does. He's been doing it for years. He's the best, probably one of the best off spinners of all time. Tough to say that as an Englishman, but it's a fact. And Kuhneman's skiddy left arms was a great option. I think they talk about how left armers in the subcontinent, especially to the right-handers, how they can get those balls to skid on straight, target the pads, target the stumps, and then the one grips as well towards the slip cordon. Left armers are a force to be reckoned with out there. Now, I had another little look at the batters. Josh Inglis, ton on debut. God, everyone they pick just turns to gold, doesn't it? Alex Carey, they move him up the order. He gets a 150. Everyone thinks Khawaja's washed. He gets a double ton. Like, what can Australia do wrong right now? I can tell you, the number 3 spot. Poor old Marnus Labuschagne. He loves cricket so much, but the cricket's not loving him. He's still struggling. He's averaging about 14 with the bat in 2025. Admittedly, 5 innings played, but he's not really lining it up in the world of Test cricket at the minute. And one thing's for sure, a lot of people knocking on that door. McSweeney's knocking on the door. A lot of openers knocking on that door to potentially come in at number 3. And it makes you think when the World Test Championship final comes up, might Marnus Labuschagne be in it? Well, let's look forward to that now because I think he will be. Australia selectors know he's good in England. He's played for Glamorgan heaps of times. Labuschagne will be there at number 3. But it feels to me like a bit of a last chance saloon for him. Travis Head, I think he will. A lot of people saying he might open in English conditions. No, I don't think so. I reckon he'll bat down at five. I think it'd be a waste for him to open the batting. So then, therefore, it opens up an opening spot. It'll be gutting for Inglis to miss out. I think Bo Webster will stay, a bit of a medium pace option with the ball. Inglis might step out. So could he open the batting? I don't think so. Constas, I still think that he'll be found out in England. I think that there was a lot of hype over a lot of aggressive shots. I don't think those Dilshans and things might work against South Africa, Rabada and co in English conditions. Bancroft, again, I think it's not really going to work for me. But then you've got two options. I mean, McSweeney, I'm going to put aside again because Bumrah just dominated him in Australia. But you've got Marcus Harris and Matthew Renshaw, both playing lots of cricket out in England, lots of county championship cricket. And I put on the TikTok, I went Marcus Harris. However, I'm changing my mind gradually as Matt Renshaw starts to play better in Shield cricket. Renshaw, with a good record at Somerset, he is going to open the batting for me for Australia. Now, the final part of the show. It's the biggest win in Test cricket by an innings or more ever. Have a think. What might it be? Maybe an innings and 200 runs, innings 250. Well, I'm going to set the scene. August the 20th, 1938. The men in the whites are rolling out England versus Australia at the Oval. 5 days later, England win by an innings and 579 runs. Let me take you through it. Let me really go through the scorecard in detail here. England, first innings. Well, about halfway through day four, on 903 for seven, the captain Wally Hammond decided, I've seen enough. I've seen enough. 903, I think we can defend that. I'm going to bring the boys in. Len Hutton had scored 364, his highest ever, off 847 balls. The number four, I think, Morris Leyland scored 187 off 438 balls. Long time at the crease. And then the number seven, Joe Hardstaff, came in and got 169 not out off 400 balls. So I think it's worth giving an honourable mention, to the extras who clocked up a brilliant half century, really helping the team out there. But the pick of the bowlers for me, he went at 3.4 per over, good economy. He bowled 87 overs, so you do the maths. Chuck Fleetwood Smith chucked figures of 1 for 298 off his 87 overs. He couldn't quite get the triple ton. I reckon a little bit of him was gutted that he couldn't get up to his triple ton. It'll be interesting to see if any other bowlers have ever gone for 300 runs in Test cricket. But in the following 90 overs, Australia lost 20 wickets for a combined 324 runs in his two innings. And England came off the pitch with that win of an innings, let me repeat it, and 579 runs. A great way to end the series, a long trip home for Australia, and a great way to end the podcast. So make sure you're following on all platforms and make sure this question got answered of what is he on about.